And
Okay.
yeah.
Right. So these are what we consider to be essential plugins for people that are running a business. Okay, as I said, there's 5, and these are those, so to speak. You'll see when I run through that the 5 are really categories rather than the plugins themselves. Okay. So contact, measurement, security, backup, and optimization. And as I run through them, they'll all become apparent as to why we consider that you should have them. So generally, the contact is that you need people that find you on the internet to be able to start a conversation with you. Okay, so I haven't included in here things like a click to call phone number, okay, because that is not done using a plugin generally. Okay, there are some plugins that can help you do it, but generally it's not. So we're talking about a form, as you probably have seen on most Contact Us pages, where you put in your name and your email address in its most basic form, and just a message that says, please can you call me about whatever. We've all probably seen them. And hopefully, most of us are using them. Okay. How are we with that? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. I've got measurement as the next one, and we're talking about analytics here. Okay, so it's for you to see how people are using your website, and how you can then make improvements to get for the visitor interaction to continue. So essentially, for most of us that are a business that offer a service, for example, we need to talk to people for a transaction to take place. Okay. And I don't know how many of you guys will have seen something similar to this. With Google Analytics, what we're talking about is when we plan our website, even with the best developers and the best will in the world, it's a bit like when the council creates a green space and then it says, I'm going to put a path in so that people can cross it. And it will perhaps run a path halfway across the green space, and it'll turn at a right angle and it will go to the other side to whatever amenities are over there. And within a very short space of time, what you'll find is that the people that use that green space will possibly just cut the corner and create their own path. Okay, so essentially that's what analytics allows us to do, is that we can see whether people are following the path that we want, or are they creating their own? And more importantly, if they are creating their own, are they still getting to the position where we want them to get to? Okay, if so, do we need to have the direction that we've got, or do we need to put something in to better signpost where we want them to go? Okay, so that's what I'm talking about with measurement and this interaction, so we can see what they're doing. It's almost like, I suppose, flying a drone over this green space and just looking down and watching how the people move around, so that we can see, are they going to that halfway point and then get moving on, or are they cutting the corner? And if we need them to get to that halfway point, looking at what they're doing, what do we need to do to get them there? So in the analogy of that green space, we perhaps need to put a bench at the corner where people will go and sit. Or if you put up one of those big boards with lots of information on, people will go to read the board and see what's available there as well. So that's just a for instance, and hopefully that makes a bit of sense for you guys. Okay, and when we move down into the measurement area itself, I've also included in there an SEO plugin, and that's sort of looking at the measurement from the other side. So that's taking the measurement and then using the information from there to produce something else. Okay. Security, I'm talking about from making our website secure. Okay, I don't know how many of you have recently seen, you may go to visit a website and it will say this website is not secure in the browser window. Okay, and that is to do with the SSL certificate, the little padlock that appears in the top corner. And what that is the secure communication between the person's browser and the website server. Okay, it doesn't mean that the website is not secure. It means the conversation between the two is not secure. Yeah, and if you think about it, if you're collecting people's data, whether that be if you give me your name and your email address, or if you've got an e-commerce site, so people are going to give you transactional information with regards to their credit card or something, you can see why that needs to be important from that point of view. But that's a hosting thing for the SSL certificate. It's not a WordPress thing. Okay, and it's two different bits of security. So we're talking at the moment about making the software of the website secure, not the communication between the browser and the server. Does that make a bit sense there, Karen, or am I have I lost people? Okay, right then, moving on. So backup, as I put it, it's technology. As anybody knows that has a slight smartphone of any kind whatsoever, it can go wrong. It can lock up, things may not work, and it's exactly the same with your website. Things can go wrong. More importantly, and this is what we see more often than not, is that we, as the people that are actually using the website from the administration side, so I'm going to create a new page or whatever, we do something wrong rather than the software failing. So quite often it's, oh, I didn't mean to delete that page, or I meant to link that page to that one and I've put it in the bin and now I can't find, whatever it is, more often than not, the problem is in the chair of the person that's doing it. But it's nice to know that you can just go, oh, right, okay, let's put back what we had yesterday because we took a backup. Let's put that back and I'll start again. So it's disaster recovery, I suppose, is what we're talking about. And the last one, optimization, as it says, delivering your website across all devices. It's about ensuring that your visitors get your website in a timely fashion, so quick loading, and in the appropriate way for the device that they're using. Okay, so most of what we're going to talk about is actual deliverability, so the speed and things like that. Most modern WordPress themes are now what they call, oh, excuse me, they will shrink automatically to suit the device that it's being displayed on. So that's not an issue. But it becomes something else that we need to take into consideration. So what I'm talking about there is, if you can imagine, as the screen size shrinks, the information has to be displayed in a slightly different way. So if you've got 2 columns of information, as the screen shrinks, what it will do is it will take the right-hand column and put it underneath the left-hand column on a phone. Okay, so that's just something you need to think about when you're laying out your website, is that if it reads left to right, it's not going to necessarily make sense when you swap it and put it onto a mobile device so that people can scroll up. So that's just something for you to be aware of. So if you have an image and a bit of text, when you're looking at it from a mobile, they're going to be separated. So you may be better off putting image text there. So when it twists, it'll still be correct. But we're going to talk about the things like making sure the images are optimized so that it delivers from that point of view. So hopefully you're still with me. I haven't sent anybody to sleep just yet. And we'll move on to contact forms. Okay, so I'm going to talk essentially about contact forms that we've used, and I'll mention some others. Okay, so this is what we use at the moment, or one of the ones that we use at the moment. It's called WP Forms, and most of them you can find in the WordPress repository. And what I mean by that is, if you log into your, and I'll show you this in a minute, if you log into your admin dashboard and go to the plugin section and say add new, if you have this information next to you, you can just do a search for WP Forms and it will find the plugin for you, okay? Most of these forms are also what they call freemium nowadays, which means there's a free version, but if you want it to work in all of the ways that it can do, you have to pay for it. So for example, this one for a single site starts from $39 for the year, okay? So as it says, drag and drop. So that means that if you want to change the way it's laid out, so you've laid it out and it says name, email, telephone number, message, you want to change them around, you just click with your mouse and drag the bits to where you want them, okay? So you construct your form like that in a drag and drop fashion. And there's a number of pre-built templates, so you can just say simple things like, as I just said, name, email, phone number, message. That'll already be there. So you haven't even got to construct that. You can pick that from the template library and just put it onto your website. It is mobile friendly, so it's responsive. It will shrink to adapt to tablets and mobiles, so that's not a problem. And it's got this thing called conditional logic built into it, okay? Or the ability to do conditional logic, should I say, rather than it's built in. And what that means, you've probably seen these forms yourselves, where you say, for example, you see a form with 10 questions on it, and if you say yes to question 1, it will take you straight to question 5. Okay, that's conditional logic. So although some of these forms can look daunting at first, if you work your way through it, you've only got 3 ticks and you're completed. And from that point of view, if you just need to speak to somebody on the telephone or send them an email, that's all you need. Keep your forms simple, okay? If you think about how you see these forms yourself when you're on other people's websites, you don't want to fill in loads of information. You just want somebody to call you back or send you an email. You just want information. So the less people have to do, the more likely they are to fill in the form. Karen, are you okay with that? Sorry, I'm picking on you, Karen, or it seems like I'm picking on you, but you're the only one I can see the picture of. And so if you just nod, I'm getting it. Sorry. Okay, so entry management. This means that you can look at all of the people that filled in the form in just one place. You haven't got to go hunting around for them, which is always useful to know. And it has payment integration amongst its other facilities. So you can actually get people to subscribe to something or make a donation or something on the form. So they can literally connect to PayPal, for example, is normally a good one, and people can give you money on the form. Now, normally there's going to be an exchange there. So that's just something to think about if you're looking to do something along those lines. So for example, a good example is if you sign up for somebody's newsletter, okay, generally it's, if you give me your first name and your email address, I will give you something. Okay, so I mean, in that instance, we call that an ethical bribe. But it just goes to show the power that these forms can have, that you can actually sell from them. Okay, there's different bits of integration that you can get from the website, and it will only work on a premium version. So you have to pay for it, just so as you know. And another form, this is another one that we use, is called Gravity Forms. Again, it's drag and drop builder. So there's a library of items on one side. You've got the big part of the screen, the sidebar, and you just say, I'll have one of those, and it puts it in, and then you can just drag it all around. There's different drop-down options, so there's little bits that you can do inside each one. So for example, for name, you could put the name in and then just say make it first name, so you can change the fields that appear at the front of the form, things like that. There's also, I can't remember if it's in WP Forms, but there's a really good thing in Gravity Forms, which is you can actually have a consent button. So there's a little tick box that you can put in that people give their consent under, and we're talking from GDPR, from our point of view, being in the European Union, and we still are, of course, you know, and for a lot of us, that our visitors are also going to be in the European Union. So even when Brexit is completed, GDPR is a European ruling, so we do need to be conscious of it in what we're doing. Again, it's got the conditional logic, so that's very useful from that point of view. It's very easy to create the thank yous, so you can create emails to go back to people saying thank you for your interest. We only work Mondays 9 to 5, and we will get back to you within 3 working days, or whatever. So you can quite quickly make up your responses and things like that within it. You could limit and schedule the forms, which means you can say only 20 people can fill this form in, for example, or that the form is only going to be available between 9 and 5, if that's your working hours, so, for example. So anybody else goes to your contact page outside of those times, the form's not available to them, or vice versa, completely up to you. And again, it has a payment integration, so you can sell via this form. It will also connect to WooCommerce, so you can connect items in WooCommerce for people to buy through here. But again, it's $59 a year for one website. Sorry, a bit of my tea so I can keep talking. And the only other form that we have used, although or recommend, should I say, although I've moved away from this recently because they've had a few issues, although I believe they've been resolved now, is called Contact Form 7. So I don't know if anybody has or uses that. Again, it's quite easy to use, and it has a lot of add-ons that give it some of the features that the other 2 forms use, but it does require a bit more tinkering, shall we say, to achieve the same thing. Okay, so measurement is what we were talking about. Google Analytics and connecting your website and getting the coding on your pages and things like that to ensure that it works. Google Analytics can be a little bit complicated to set up, but this particular plugin, if you have 2 tabs open in the same browser, one with your Google Analytics open, and the other one you open this plugin, it will be able to connect just because the 2 of them are there. You'll just be able to say, go and connect to Google Analytics. You'll see that it's open. It'll say which one do you want to connect this to, and you select the right one. And so you can be up and running really quite quickly. It also has, I don't know if you can see that on the picture there. I'm not sure how good the image is, but it gives you something like this that displays within your dashboarded WordPress. So essentially, once you've got Google Analytics connected, you can just go into WordPress to have a look at your analytics. Okay, you don't need to go delving back into Google Analytics. And for those of you that have or do use it, you'll realize that it's not the easiest thing in the world to navigate around and get information that you want. Okay, but this will give you some straight out of the box. So yeah, it does universal tracking, which is Google Analytics. So GA is Google Analytics. Sorry, I apologize for that. I've used abbreviation and I should have explained what it was on the page. So apologize for that. Yes, you get a dashboard. It will do enhanced e-commerce tracking. So if you're using WooCommerce, for example, it will track that for you. It will give you page level analytics. What that means is you can have a look at the analytics for individual pages. Okay, so it's not just looking at your website as a whole. You can go and have a look at each one. If you do affiliate sales, it will track the links for affiliate sales and ads on your website. So if you're using Google Ads, it will track that for you as well. It's GDPR compliant, which obviously for us is pretty good, and it works with most major plugins. So things like, as I said, WooCommerce, you can track your contact forms on some of them, but again, to achieve all of that, you do need to have the paid version rather than the free one. And as I say, it's a freemium, so it will work off the plugin repository and give most people all the information they need. But if you do need to go further, it'll cost you. And this is an alternate. It's again, it's another one that's got over 1 million installs. And I'll run through the bits and pieces that we're looking at on here, because this is what the information that you get from the repository, which is what you need to look at to say, is this plugin reliable and should I use it? So that's measurement from that side of things. And as I said, oh, sorry, I'll just quickly run through this one. This is actually Google's own, okay? We used to use it some time ago, 4 or 5 months ago. We've stopped using it, and that's because of the security we run. It means that the plugin doesn't like it and it won't work. So it doesn't give us accurate information back because the plugin keeps falling over. But that's just what we do. And it says there it's got over 500,000 active installs, so it sounds like it's working for some people. But it's just something to be aware of when you're looking at plugins. Sometimes some of them may not work for you. Cool. And for if anybody uses Google Tag Manager instead of, or as a replacement for Google Analytics, that is the plugin that we use for that. So essentially we use Google Tag Manager because it gives us more control to see what people are doing on the website. So needs more setting up, but we track things like how far down the page do people scroll. We have numerous contact us pay forms which we've got on the footer of our website, so we track things like which page did it come from and things like that. So it's just a slightly different setup. For most businesses, possibly not necessary if all you want is for somebody to fill in the contact form and so you can get back to them, but just be aware that it's there. So this is the other side. As I said earlier, we were talking about SEO. So this is the main one we use now. We've found that it gives us most of what we need. It's not the only one that will do it, but like the analytics plugin, it allows us to quickly connect our website with Google and Bing, the search consoles for both, so that we can tell them the pages on our website that it needs to index. Okay, so that's one of the things that it's for from a measurement point of view. Google Analytics no longer gives information about search terms that people use, but Google Search Console will. So from that point of view, it's also another way of actually looking at the measurement of what people are doing. It does mean on here, and again, this is on the paid version, not the free one, it checks your content every 6 months, and then it'll say you haven't updated this content for a while. So that's why it means by no outdated content. And it will show you what Google, Facebook, and Twitter, the preview of your pages looks like. So if you regularly use social media from that point of view, that's a very useful thing to have. And as I say, avoid duplicate content. It tells you, basically, you've already created this information. Are you sure you want to continue? So the other one is this all-in-one SEO pack. Some of you may be using that. It's, again, very up to date. It says there it's been downloaded over 50 million times. I bet it's not active on 50 million websites at the moment, but it does something very similar. but from our point of view, we prefer the other one. That's all there is to it. And if you just go, and I'll show you in a minute, you can just search for SEO and have a look for plugins that are there and available. We talked about security, so we use iTheme Security. If any of you got a website that's been running for a while, it was formerly Better WP Security. I don't know whether you've got security on your website. And this gives you some really useful information, not information, that's the wrong word, Mark, items that you can set up. So you can have two-factor authentication. So people need to confirm when they put in their username and password, it's them. I can't remember off the top of my head which ways it does it, but you can also use Google reCAPTCHA. So if it's their first time logging in, they'll have to tick all the traffic lights or whatever and have the tick box that says, yes, I'm not a robot. Again, who's using your website from that point of view? If it's just you, you probably don't want that on, but it's all of these little modules are just enabled or disabled at the click of a button, so that's completely up to you. It ensures that your users have use strong passwords, so you can set the level. You can say it must be 12 characters, for example, and it must have letters and numbers and upper and lower case or whatever. That's up to you. You can set passwords to expire, so every 3 months people need to create a new one. Again, this is, you need to think of it in context. So if it's just two of you, do you need that sort of thing? It's always a good idea to make people have strong passwords anyway, because the software that the hackers use, it will guess anything that's created from a name or a word. So even if the word's backwards or the letters are jumbled up, there is the possibility that it'll do it, because it just runs through the permutations and adds numbers and things in. So just something to be aware of. And it has another widget like the analytics. You have a widget that can go on your dashboard and it'll tell you how many users you've got, who's got strong passwords, when was the last time they logged in. So all of this information can be there available for you right at the start when you first log in. And again, freemium. So on the freemium, you don't get things like the two-factor authentication. You don't get things like the malware scanning. I can't remember what the other ones are. So, you know, let's just say there's like 16 options and you get 10 on the free one, something like that, like so many of these things do. An alternative is WordFence, and again, does more or less the same thing. I'm just trying to think if there was another one. I haven't included another one in here, but so I say I've only included the stuff that we use, so I know that you can quite easily use it, and it's not too much effort. The support's good, and for most people, that's really quite important. Okay, backups. We use Backup Buddy, which, as you may have noticed from the little logo in the top right, is the same people produce this as produce the security plugin that we talked about. So if I remember rightly, if you get both of them, you also get a discount on the prices. And this backs up everything. It's called a backup, but it's more of a clone, if that makes sense. So the analogy I use is, if something was a backup, it's like ripping all the pages out of a book, putting it into a bag, shaking it up and tipping it on the floor. And what you'd have is all of the pages of the book, but you'd have to put it back together. Whereas a clone, if you ripped all the pages out, put it in the bag and shook it up, when you emptied it out, you'd have the book back. So I hope that analogy actually helps you when you start looking for something like this, that it's so much quicker to put it back from a clone than it is from a backup. So we schedule our backups to run once a week, and we send them to a Google Drive. So that's just a for instance. It also works with Dropbox. It works with Amazon as well, off the top of my head. and numerous other things that you send it to. They also include on the single site, which is the $80, is 1 gigabyte of storage on their storage servers. So for most people, that would take quite a while to get over that limit, let's just say. And you can set the backups to run when you want. So you can have them to run daily, weekly, whatever. You can have it back up the whole site or just bits of the site. And if it backs up the whole site, you can pick which files that you want it to back up within the site. So if you didn't want it to back up your images, for example, you could leave those out, just in case you're looking at the limits of your backup facility. That's just for instance of things you can do there. There's Duplicator we've used as well in the past. Duplicator lets you take backups quite easily. Again, it's a fairly simple process. Their documentation is pretty good, but if memory serves, you have to pay for the premium version to actually put something back. But until something goes wrong, that's an option. If your resources aren't that great, until you need to put it back, you can just take weekly backups or whatever, and then worry about it when you have to put it back. And the other one is All-in-One WP. For us, we generally create a backup from this and then download it onto a machine in the office somewhere for people that are using this. It's pretty good at putting them back as well, off the top of my head. And I don't think you have to pay for the version to put it back. I talked about optimization at the start. I hope I'm not going too fast for people. Like I said, I'm going to turn this into a PDF and it will be available for you. So if I am going a bit quick, and we'll have a bit of a catch up in a minute anyway. So optimization is about delivering your page information. So that's the code that makes up the page and the text and the images that you've placed on it in a timely fashion for your visitors. So we aim to get pages to load, especially home pages, which is what most people put out. You have it on your business cards, etc. We aim to get them to load in under 2 seconds. If we can make it in under a second, we're doing really well. That's on desktops, and you want generally between 2 and 3 seconds on a mobile. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how impatient people are, and you've probably done it yourselves. I know we all have. Well, we've clicked on a link to something and then it's taken so long to load in our minds. I mean, those of us that can think back to the old dial-up modems, everything still loads fast compared to that, but we've become so impatient that if it hasn't loaded, we've gone. Okay, we've clicked the back button, we've gone back to the Google search or whatever, and we've gone looking for something else. So getting websites to load quickly is good from an SEO point of view, because obviously we want people to get to the website, and it's important that people get there and do something. So that's good because Google likes it. So some of this, it perhaps doesn't make much sense to you. So cache preloading, for example, is they have like a spider, for want of a better description, that works along the same lines as Google does, so that it already knows what the page is. gzip compression makes the files themselves smaller. Images on request means that you can set it so that if you've got 2 images and it's on a mobile device, so if you imagine your mobile device like that, it won't load the image down here until the person scrolls up, which means the bit that's actually on their screen will load quicker because it's not waiting for all of it. And the same on a desktop, because sometimes we have to scroll on a desktop as well. So again, I don't think they do a free version. I think this is just from $49 a year. The support is excellent. Their documentation, is actually in the plugin is excellent. There's videos that show you how to set things up. So from that point of view, top notch. We use it. It gets recommended by an awful lot of WordPress people. So that's that one. And a couple of others. WP Fastest Cache we've used in the past. It is just tick boxes, tick that, tick that, tick that to set it up. So from that point of view, it's really good. It doesn't do as much as the other one does, which you'd expect because it is free. But if your website is just if you're just a small business, this is the one for you from our point of view, because it's just, like I said, just I'll tick that button, tick that button, tick that button. It's all switched on and it will start working. Auto-Optimize is a step up from the last one, but it is a lot more fiddly to use. I've just included it because it's a sort of in between the two. So from that point of view, it may be worthwhile for some of you that are more technically inclined. But I say that the documentation's good, but there isn't any, or there weren't any videos on the by the author. You'll probably find some on YouTube that will tell you how to do it, but I can't remember them being any from the author. Okay, so that was, I think it may have been a quick run through. Is everybody still awake? Oh, I can see Kathy, she's smiling. So everybody else has switched their images off, so I can't see anybody. I'll run you through a couple of bits and pieces. So I was talking about adding new plugins. And if I hope you're all aware of your dashboard from this point of view as an administrator, and that you all have administrative access to your own websites. That's a huge, I hope so anyway. You really should have. If you haven't, you need to speak to whoever did it for you and say, I need to have admin access to this website, okay? So within our plugins, so this is all our navigation for our website here. We've just been talking about plugins, and there's under there's the plugins that are already on your website, which are the installed plugins, and there's the add new. So if you're looking to see what's available or what isn't from the point of view of your security and things, just go and see what you've got installed first and see if there's anything there that is actually still in the WordPress repository. So I'm going to add new. And you have to bear with me because I think we're having a very slow internet day for some bizarre reason today. I think it's because they've shared the bandwidth around for everybody during the lockdown. In fact, I can't even see if that's doing anything. Let's try that again. Okay, here we go. Okay, sorry, I was on the add new screen. I wish I'd pay attention. Okay, so we have here the ability, as it says, to search. So, for example, if we wanted to put in a caching plugin, or cache, I don't know which is the correct way to pronounce it. You can just type in the words themselves there, and it will pull up the ones that are available. So I talked about WP Fastest Cache, which is just here. And you need to look at various bits and pieces on here before you make the decision whether or not you want to add this plugin to your website. So, for example, the reviews are always useful to know. This is interesting because it tells you how many active installs. So this is not just the plugin on a website, it's a plugin actually switched on other websites, okay? When it was last updated, and if it's compatible with your version of WordPress, okay? if you click on the more details, that will take you through to those images that you saw on the slides. Okay, but there is more than information than I've put on the slides, because generally there'll be the ability to scroll down. Okay, so it tells you, you can go and have a look at there. It'll tell you how to install it. All the information is there available for you. In fact, if we go through on the installation, it just says turn it on. That's not particularly helpful there, but as I say, this one in particular is just, in fact, I'm going to install it. What the hell? I'll just quickly install it and I'll show you. Although I may have a conflict here because we've already got a caching plugin installed. So let me just turn the other one off so I can switch this one on. Okay, so into all of our, let me just deactivate the other one. Yeah. Okay, so if I turn this one on, we need some sort of background music for this, don't we? Okay, in this instance, down the side here, it's put this little extra piece of functionality on the side. So this is the place on the dashboard where we can go and use this. And as I said, it is simple as tick these boxes, what you want. So this is for preloading. So this means the information's readily available for people to get quickly, and you can decide what you want to put up. Restart after. It basically go and tick everything. And then you just submit it once you're finished. It really is quite a simple plugin to use. You'd be surprised how quickly you'll see a difference. And while we're talking about seeing a difference, if you go to this website here and you put in your website and say analyze, it will tell you how fast your website runs now. Excuse me. Oh. Okay, so it'll give you some information, tells you how fast it runs, and there's other bits and pieces here which, if you're working with a developer, it may be that there's useful stuff to give them. But if you take a quick test before you put in your caching plugin and go and switch it on, test it again, and see the difference that it makes. I will say to you that it's a good idea, now it says retest there, to do several tests, okay? Because this is, it's going to be an aggregate, shall we say. And it depends, for most people, they're on shared hostings, for example, so they get, it's like all 10 websites being on my laptop, for example. That's what we're talking about, shared hosting. So depending on what's happening at any particular time, it's going to affect the load time and what happens. So it's worthwhile doing several tests just to get yourself a sort of an average. And generally leave 10 to 15 minutes between each test. So don't just do one and then do one straight away, because it's not going to give you any useful information from that point of view. So do that, do a quick test, and then put your plugin in and test it again. And now I've lost where I was and who I was. Okay, so that was that plugin. So again, you can see this is where we use Backup Buddy. So that you can see on the side, you can see the security. So again, that's on the side. This is the one that we use. And it's most of it is just as simple as turning things on and off to give you the basic level. Certainly in the free version, it's just turn the thing on and let it go and do its stuff. As I say, there is good information out there. There's certainly on YouTube, there's some videos on how to use it. So if you need to go and sort yourselves out, do so. I can't remember if the version for SSL certificates is available on, oh, here we go, that tells you what's available extra on the premium version. So there's quite a bit more available if you pay for it. And most of these plugins work in a fairly similar way. You get the basic on the free version, and then you upgrade to get the rest of it. So hopefully, as I say, I will make this available to you. I'll save this as PDF and I'll load it up onto the Academy. Hopefully I've given you some information that you can use there to go and either improve your websites, to make yourself a new one, or more importantly, if you're working with somebody else, it gives you some idea of what you can perhaps make sure that they're doing to ensure you're getting the best. Have I lost my camera? Oh, everything's going wrong. So, Kathy, was that a useful? You have to unmute yourself. I've done it.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was helpful. So
okay.
Yeah, it's helped a lot actually.
So you've got a website, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. But as I said, it does need updating because it was quite a few years the last time I updated it. So
okay. Well, my big thing here is before you update it, put in and take a backup.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah. So when you look on here on your dashboard,
yeah,
I mean, here we've got a red dot, but you'll quite often see up on the updates here, so it'll appear where it says dashboard, there'll be lots of red dots, and the number in them tells you how many updates there are to be done.
Right.
So please, before you do any updates, take a backup.
Right. Okay.
Depending who you are hosted with, it's always worthwhile having a quick chat with them, because a lot of hosts do daily backups as well.
Yeah, I'm on DreamHost, so
yeah, check with them.
But yeah.
No, it may be that they, even if they only do weekly, if you're not doing many updates,
yeah,
having a website that's 7 days old is better than having no website at all.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it's helped a lot, so it has definitely. It's
so Annabelle, what do you do?
I'm an image consultant, and I'm just looking into actually starting up my own website. So it's just trying to get the knowledge of what I need to do in order to start up my website, and yeah, all the security checks and the algorithms and the analytics and all that lot.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, if whoever you're, are you going to get somebody to do it for you, or are you very technical?
Yes, I'm going to get somebody to do it for me, yeah. But it's just for me to get that knowledge, as you said, so someone's going to do it for me because they know the know-how, but then at least if I have some idea of it when they're talking to me, I can nod as though I understand and not just look at them blankly.
Very good. Yeah, so if you can, get them to put analytics in right at the start.
Okay.
Because although it'll take a while for you to get any meaningful information, the quicker you can start gathering, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's just one of the things that that we do for people. Like I say, we use Tag Manager. So essentially, the easiest way I can explain it is that things like Google Analytics and like Facebook pixels and things like that are all bits of code that you add extra onto your website. And if you consider that the way it works is your website provides almost like a selection of roads that this scripts all run on, the more scripts you put on the road, the more crowded the road becomes, and therefore things can quite quickly slow down. the traffic can get slow, which means your
Okay.
website is slow. So Google Tag Manager essentially is, instead of them all having their own cars and going around, is a bus, and then we put them all on the bus. So we've still only got one vehicle on the road. Okay,
Gotcha.
and as I say, from that point of view, we can also do so much more with it. So as I say, we check how far people scroll down a page. That may be important. If you've got two buttons side by side and they both go into different pages, you can monitor bits and pieces like that. So who clicks on this button, who clicks on that button? Do we change the colors? Yeah, it gives us far more control. From that point of view, we can also monitor people coming from Facebook pixels. So if people are using Facebook advertising and things like that, we can send values back to Facebook for what people are doing. Yeah, it's a far more in-depth tool. But if your website is your homepage, my services, my about me, and contact me, Google Analytics will give you all the information that you need to see if what you've created is actually what people are using. As I say, we come up with this plan and we think they're going to take this route, but do they actually do it? And then from there, you can make the decision: do we change the route or do we just make the signposts better? Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark, can I just ask you a question?
Of course you can.
Looking at your screen thing, where you've got GDPR cookie consent, is that a plugin or is it something different? Or
where are you looking? Sorry.
On your screen, shared screen, you're on the left-hand side down the.
Oh yeah. So you know when you go to a website and you see the banner quite often at the bottom or whatever that says we use cookies and you have to accept them.
Yeah.
That is a legal requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to tell people that you use cookies. You have to have a policy about the cookies and how you use them. I don't know as anybody's ever got into any trouble for it yet, but essentially there is up to a £500,000 fine if somebody complains. So the Information Commissioner's Office will only go and look at instances if somebody complains. Yeah. Essentially.
But how do you get that up on? How did you get that up?
That's a plugin.
That's a plugin.
Yeah. Right. So if you're looking at the dashboard here,
yeah.
If I can get my mouse to work. It's having a bit of a moment. Let's see if I can just. Okay. Oh, gone too far. Okay, so all of these bits down the side. So dashboard, posts, media, pages, comments, appearance, plugins, users, tools, settings, for instance, they are part of the WordPress core. Right. Okay, so everybody should have those. Things like this bit here is a plugin has added that into the dashboard.
Right.
Okay, so that is a plugin.
Right.
Okay, so we know the security is a plugin, we know the cache is a plugin, and they all add the controls for them onto the administration dashboard. So if you're logging in and all you can see is things like the dashboard, posts, media, pages, and comments, that means you haven't got administration access.
Right. Okay.
Generally. There are other things it can mean, but just generally, that's what it is.
Right. Okay.
And most of these, as you see, when you hover over them, you get that drop down to give you the multiple options.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you must have a privacy policy. You must have a cookie policy in the UK. And as a business, you must also have your business details on the website somewhere.
Right. Okay.
And if you're a sole trader, you also need to include some information. I can't remember what it is. That's another thing I'll add into our Academy website.
Yeah.
So if I go to I'm going to chuck into the chat. I'll put in the link to the Academy website.
Okay, thanks. Brilliant.
Oh, I don't want that there. Go away. Right, that's better. So just so you know, we'll also send out an email to everyone and we'll put it in there as well.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, so I say you do need to sign up to get that information.
Right.
But there's no charge.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that we've put it behind a gate to keep it safe.
Yeah, fair enough.
But we also have on the Academy, we have a bunch of videos as well, which we do charge for. So there's two options.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 120 odd videos on there that tell you how to do numerous bits and pieces. So some of which I've covered now. It will show you how to do bits and pieces like how to put images in, how to resize images, things like that. So that's all on there. But by all means, have a look and see what's what and whether that would be of some value to you.
Yeah, will do.
And we keep them up to date. So as WordPress changes, we make the changes to the videos.
Okay. Good.
So I hope everybody got something useful out of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And it will enable you, like I said, I've called them essential plugins. It's what we think that as a business you should have, because as I say, with things like the security, that if you're collecting people's emails and things like that, it's important that you do keep them safe.
Yeah.
And they do need to contact you. You need a conversation to start somehow. And some of those forms allow you to say things like, you know, if you want us to contact you, please give us your phone number. What's the best time for us to contact you and things like that. So you can go into some quite depth with them, the information that you want. So when we are getting information from people for, if they want a website redesign or whatever, the form that we create is actually pages long because of the information that we need. But we do use that conditional logic so that if somebody says, yes, I don't, or yes, I want e-commerce, then more questions come up than if they say no. So it's very powerful, and depending on what you want to achieve, you may just want name and email and what do you want me to talk to you about. So bear that in mind. I mean, always start, my advice to everybody is start with your paper and your crayons and draw what you want first, rather than going and looking for the software and getting something and then think, oh, I don't want it to do that. So always start with the plan of what you want to achieve and then go and find the things that will help you achieve it. Okay, everyone. Like I said, I'm going to go and create the Anna, yes, e-commerce. Yeah. Now, so Anna's put in a question, a good recommendation for the shop, e-commerce. If you go to the repository, basically, if you're using WordPress, use WooCommerce. Now, like so many of these things, this is free. Okay, as you can see there, it's got 5 million active installs on it. So this is 5 million people selling things on their website, okay? And bearing in mind that you selling something, it could be a PDF. Yeah, so that's a virtual product, basically. So when you're planning bits and pieces for your business, that's something to consider. So you could say 99p, you can have a PDF. Okay, so it's just a way of doing something. So that's 5 million installs. We manage 10 I think it's 10 websites with WooCommerce on it, and only one of them sells it's like a clothes shop, for example. So some of the others, we use the WooCommerce, which is the e-commerce, the electronic commerce, to deliver lessons, for example. So people buy lessons and then it connects to something else and they get lessons delivered to them. So we have somebody that does video lessons, somebody that does PDFs, which are lessons, and some people that do a combination of each. We have a couple of health and safety companies, for example, that sell courses, physical courses, where somebody books it from the WooCommerce and then goes and turns up and has a classroom training. So you know, I said, if you think about what you want to achieve and then say, okay, now how do I go about achieving that? Is probably the best way to do it, because just by doing a search, so if you just did a search, how do I sell on WordPress, you'd probably end up at WooCommerce, whatever it is. But just again, something to bear in mind, the basic thing here is free. As soon as you want to start doing things like adding business PayPal to it, for example, you have to start paying a bit of extra. So it's, like I say, it's a freemium. There's, you know, there is a cost to every purchase. It is that simple. So Anna, hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, so you could sell things, but you could sell something if it's just buy this one item. You could achieve that just by using PayPal and a buy it now button. Okay, so like I said, if you start with your paper and your crayons and draw the picture of what you want to achieve, if all you want to do is sell one pen to one person, that PayPal buy it now button would do the job, rather than having this wonderful shopping cart where you can sell millions of things. And so you can do all of the variations and things. So you can say, I'm selling, do you want a red pen or a blue pen or a green pen? So you have them all in there as various options of one product. So pen and paper, start there. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It was a great help.
All right, everybody, thanks for dropping by. No doubt you'll get an email about when the next one is as well. It's the second Tuesday of the month. And prior to us being in this unfortunate situation, we actually run them as a physical meetup in Chatham.
Okay.
So anybody that's local, hopefully once they've relaxed the rules a bit more, we'll be bringing them back to that. We're going to keep doing this as well because we enjoy it.
Good.
So have a good evening, everybody. If it is evening where you are, if it's not, have a good whatever time of day it is. And thank you for dropping by.